Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Hall, and I am an assistant director of admission at Carnegie Mellon University. I'm going to be the only person on the presentation today, but I do have Emily Moss, my colleague, her name at the bottom of your screen because she helped me create this presentation. So definitely want to give her credit because she is an expert in this field as well. So we are here today because you want to know how to build a college list, or maybe you do know, but you maybe want some tips on how to do that. Maybe you haven't even chosen any of your colleges yet. We're all at different parts of the journey. I think the important thing is having a set of guidelines at the beginning, no matter where you are, so you can ensure that that college search is going to be successful. Because ultimately, the way you know it is successful is if you end up at a college that you're really happy to be at 100%. So today we are going to go over three main agenda items today. We're going to talk about fit. That's kind of the main concept that we'll talk about today. But we will also talk about, once you found your fit, how do you research, or once you understand fit, I should say, how do you research the options that you have to figure out which colleges are going to offer me that fit? And then how do you narrow down your applications? Maybe you are doing a lot of research and you see like 20 or 30 different colleges that you feel like you would be a good fit at, and colleges would be a good fit for you. But maybe you only want to do like 5 or 10 in your college list. So how do you do that? What is that process? One thing that I will say before we get started is that this is a Carnegie Mellon University presentation. However, this Insight series is completely general. So I am coming at this from somebody who has worked at Carnegie Mellon University. I have only applied when I was going into my undergraduate education. I had only applied to 2 colleges. So my perspective is definitely that. Your perspective might be something different. So if you were a current high school student, if you're a parent of a current high school student looking for college, you might have lots of different colleges that you're looking at that are not really like Carnegie Mellon, or maybe you're going to apply to 2 or more colleges, or more than 2 colleges, I should say. So it is important to keep in mind that by no means is this an exhaustive list or basically rules that you have to follow, but this is hopefully going to be useful to you as you start to figure out which colleges to go to and narrow that down basically to your heart's content. So keeping that in mind, let's get started. So fit. Maybe when you're thinking about sitting down and building a college list, maybe you think, okay, so it's super easy. All I do is I go on US News and World Report. I look at the college rankings. I just start from the top, just apply to the first maybe like 10, and then that's it, right? Well, I will say that that's probably not the best way to do it. Putting myself on the line here, that was one way that I thought was a good way to build a college list. For my master's degree, basically, that's how I selected a lot of my colleges, for better or for worse. And I think for your postgraduate or graduate education is a little bit different than undergraduate, but still, you're going to want to look at a lot more things, a lot more metrics, qualities than just ranking. And I think the most important thing that you can figure out from looking at a diverse set of data, but as well just going on and going to their website and hearing from other students. Basically, if you compile all that, the most valuable thing that you can figure out is, am I a good fit for this university? And is this university or college a good fit for me? Those are the 2 most important questions that you can ask when deciding which colleges to go to. So what is fit? There's really a few things, and it's not limited to this list. It can be academic, environmental, or financial. Those are the 3 main things that we'll talk about today. There could be other things that are important to you specifically, but these are typically the most common ideas that students and their families have when they're sitting down and trying to figure out which colleges to go to. So academics, this is kind of I guess this is the high watermark one where a lot of people are focusing on it first. So that's where the rankings come into play. Rankings which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, are they're good at compiling some information, mostly about academics, but about other things as well. But academics really is front and center for a lot of people in their college search. That's good because you are going to college primarily to study and to learn things. So academics should be an essential part of your process. It is not the entire package, though. So I definitely encourage you to look beyond academics while making your decisions. But while we're on academics, when we're thinking about fit, sometimes we think about, am I going to be a good fit for the university? So is the university going to look at me and say, yes, we can take this person? That is something definitely important to ask. And oftentimes the way that question gets asked is, are my test scores or are my grades good enough? Have I taken the right classes in order for this university to accept me? It is good to ask that question, but by no means should that be the only thing that you were looking at for academic fit. So you can see right at the bottom of this slide, it says, what are the average grades for incoming students, prerequisite coursework? Again, very important. What I would recommend is looking on universities' websites to find this information. If you look at third-party websites, a place like the Princeton Review or Niche or U.S. News and World Report, they sometimes do publicize this information, but it's most likely that the university is going to have the most up-to-date information. So because test scores and grades and ranges can change actually pretty drastically over the course of 5 or 10 years. So I would definitely go straight to the source, but look on their website, see what their grades are, see what their test scores are. But no, that's not the entire thing, especially since a lot of colleges and universities either are test optional or are going to be test optional for the upcoming year. So, colleges, your application readers might not be placing as large of a burden or basically an impact on your test scores. But it is very important to understand so that you kind of know where you sit, at least in terms of those very kind of basic fundamental academic credentials. I think one of the things that you'll then want to figure out is what happens when you get there. So let's say that you really want to study criminology, or you really want to study, information systems or something like that. Is the university or the college going to offer those majors or majors like that you could see yourself studying? So you definitely, if your heart is on going to be a doctor, or you really want to get a pre-med degree or an engineering degree, and you don't see that at the college, I would hesitate to say that it's going to be a good academic fit for you. You can definitely change. People change all the time, and that's why it's important to, kind of going to that third point, figure out, does the school, college, university support students who want to switch majors or come in undeclared? Because if you're traditional high school age going into college, 17, 18 years old, you may know exactly what you want to do, but you might take a couple years to really figure that out, or even longer. So is that college or university going to give you the ability to switch or be undeclared? So figuring out if that's the case, and then also figuring out if they have the majors that you want to study is essential. Because if they don't, again, I would say they're probably not a good academic fit for you. It's not necessarily just on the classes that you'll be taking, but also the enrichment opportunities that you'll have as well. So by academic enrichment, I'm thinking about things like tutoring services. So do they have some kind of academic development or tutoring service at the college or university? Do they have a writing center? Do they offer kind of like peer mentoring or things like that, especially for, not even just for academics, but also for, just getting through, a day in the life of a college student? Or do they have a good orientation program? And some of those things can be more environmental, but they do function a lot in academics as well, because you're being introduced to the day-to-day life of the student. So, do they have those enrichment opportunities? One other thing as well is many colleges and universities offer honors programs or some kind of extra seminar or something like that opportunity. So if that's something that you really want, see if colleges are going to offer that. Some colleges don't, especially colleges that um, they're highly selective. They're already admitting students with really great academic qualifications, so it's really hard to create an honors program out of those students. But sometimes they will have extra seminar opportunities. I know at Carnegie Mellon, just speaking from experience, we have 2 scholars programs located within our humanities and social science college. So those aren't honors programs, but they do allow you seminar access. You get to basically stay in a certain wing of a university or a dorm with people in your cohort. So it has more of that small cohort program feel. So if that's something that you really want, definitely see if the university or college offers it. All right, so that's academic fit. Let's talk about environmental fit. So a few minutes ago, I said I just went down the rankings and that's how I selected all my grad schools. That's not entirely the case now that I think about it. A lot of it was based on location as well. So environmental fit can mean location. Which city is it located in? Is it urban? Is it rural? Is it a small town? What's the geography like? Is it far away from home? Is it close to home? Is it in the mountains? Is it in the desert? Is it in the forest? Where is it? So, that's definitely a very important thing to probably ask first is, do I know where I'm going to be driving or flying to or busing to or training to, going on a train ride to in order to, arrive on campus and go to my residence hall. Even knowing too, I don't necessarily want an on-campus experience. Maybe I want to commute. Maybe I want to be online. That's another important environmental aspect as well. So I would start there. And then you can look at a couple of other data points. So how big the school is. I would definitely look at total enrollment and make sure that you are looking at the total enrollment of undergraduates, or if you're looking for grad school, of graduate students as well. Some universities and colleges only have undergraduate students. Some have both undergraduate and graduate students. Some universities, if you look on Wikipedia or something like that, they'll list total enrollment and they're just talking about undergrads. And sometimes they'll list total enrollment and they're talking about everybody. So if you, again, going back to Carnegie Mellon, and I swear this is more of a general presentation than it is Carnegie Mellon specific one. If you take the graduate school population, it doubles basically the enrollment from just looking at undergraduates. So it can be a very large difference. So thinking about how big the school is for just in total, and then also thinking about if you're an undergraduate, how many undergraduates are there. And the size can also be relative too. So I'm thinking about if you are going into a program, so let's say your program is very small. Maybe you're going to the University of Michigan or University of Central Florida. There's a lot of students. It's a large state school, but perhaps you're going into a program that only enrolls 50 to 100 students, or maybe even fewer than that each year. Then it might actually feel fairly small to you, at least in terms of the day-to-day academics. Another thing to consider too is if you went to a large high school, maybe a college is going to feel a little bit smaller to you if you graduated with maybe 400 or 500 other students or 1,000 other students. Somebody who graduated with maybe only 100 students in their class or fewer than that might see the same school and think it's actually much larger. So what you're used to definitely plays a role in that as well. Thinking about the opportunities that are available outside the classroom, these are things like clubs, sports, other extracurricular opportunities, but also thinking about like co-ops, internships, and where the college is located can play a role in that. So if you were looking for, I don't know, a career in healthcare, let's say infectious disease, and you're looking at a college in Atlanta, that's where the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, is located. Because they already have an infrastructure, they might be able to offer you more opportunities, readily available opportunities, than if you went to a college that was located maybe in rural Georgia, let's say, where there isn't that built-in infrastructure as opposed to Atlanta. And that's just one example. So one other thing to consider as well is just because a college or university is not located near maybe a lot of industry that you're wanting to do an internship or a co-op in, that doesn't mean that they cannot connect you with those resources. So, looking to see if they have a job or career center that's going to be able to provide you with some internship or co-op leads or opportunities. Thinking about on-campus employment as well. Does the school offer a work-study program? How many work-study jobs are there? And these are things that you might be able to find online. It's also good to ask an admission counselor or somebody who works in the Career Center for more information about that. And then finally, are there any factors, any identifying factors that are really important to you? So religious denominations, is it a Jesuit school? Is it associated with another religious denomination? Is it a single gender school? So is it a men's or women's college? Is it something like an HBCU, a historically Black college or university? Or maybe it's associated with another identity group or racial or ethnic group as well. Work colleges, so there's a consortium of work colleges that allow you to work at the university in exchange for a tuition stipend or a refund. So that can be something important as well. So any identifying factors that are important to you, sometimes going to a college that has these identifying factors might actually make for an more enjoyable college experience for you than going to a top-ranked college, even in the same area. Finally, let's talk about financial fit. So this is, maybe as a student, thinking academics, super important. I want to make sure that I fit academically, environmentally as well. I had a lot of fun looking at which city each of the colleges that I selected was in. Finances is definitely something that's not as fun to think about, but it actually can be very exciting if you realize that, oh, actually I can make college work for a lot cheaper than I thought it would be. But there are very important questions to ask. And I think the first thing going in to understand is that the sticker price or the average, or not even the average, the listed cost of attendance, just default for all students, may not be what you end up paying, especially if you are a domestic student. So a student who was a US citizen, permanent resident, or DACA recipient. So with that in mind, I think the first thing to figure out is what kind of aid, financial aid, does the university offer or the college offer? So there's two main types of financial aid. There's merit-based aid and there's need-based aid. Merit-based aid talks about grades, scores, extracurriculars. They're looking at that in order to give you financial aid. So if you get a really high score on your SATs or you have a 4.0 GPA, you might get a scholarship from the university. Need-based aid purely looks at your family's estimated financial contribution. And you can find that through the, it's basically the FAFSA, the Freed Application for Federal Student Aid, calculates that. So filling out the FAFSA is very important so that you can figure out how much aid you qualify for, because the numbers are coming from that, as well as sometimes universities will use what's called the CSS profile, which is another, or it's through the College Board, and that also determines what your estimated family contribution is. You can also look at the net price calculator. So some schools and colleges have a net price calculator, which you can plug in some numbers. It's really good if you have your most recent tax information on file, because it allows you to estimate what your financial aid would be, especially if the university offers need-based financial aid. It's able to do that a lot more accurately than if it offers merit-based or a combination of merit and need-based financial aid. The net price calculator is never a guarantee of what you will get, but since the financial aid numbers are coming from the FAFSA and the CSS profile, it is possible to, within a certain range, estimate what you might be looking at And that's a good first number to start at, to figure out, well, put in the net price calculator. This is way out of our budget. It's probably not going to work. One thing to figure out as well is if the school meets full financial need. So if it is a need-based, if they offer need-based aid, some schools offer basically, let's say that it costs $20,000 to go there a year. Let's say that you fill out the FAFSA and the CSS profile and find out that your estimated family contribution is $10,000. So you have $10,000 more dollars that basically your family can't contribute, which is what's estimated. Does the school give you the full $10,000? Not all schools and colleges will publicize this, but definitely look for those that do, or that say we meet 95% or X% of financial need, because that's going to give you a better idea of what your financial aid offer or award might look like, especially if they do give need-based aid. Do not assume that if your estimated family contribution is, again, $10,000 and you're missing $10,000 to make up the rest of the tuition and the cost of attendance, don't assume that that is 100% going to be paid for every single college. I think more and more colleges are trying to meet that full financial need, but many colleges, it's not within their capacity to do that. So definitely something to keep in mind. And then finally, think about the non-billable costs. So if you're looking at a place that is far from home, let's say, or maybe you're looking at a degree that you need a lot of textbooks or things like that, think about what those non-billable costs are, because you are not going to see them on your financial aid offer. So sometimes universities and colleges will give you a stipend for books, but not always. And it really, the book costs do, and books and other materials do depend, they really vary, especially if you're going into engineering or something like that. You may end up spending a lot of money on textbooks, whereas if you're like me and we're an English major, but purchasing books was not that stressful, because many of them you could get secondhand for $2 or $3. So think about that. It does vary. If you're going far from home, I think I said just a minute ago, think about the travel and transportation costs that are going to be associated with getting out there, as well as if you want to visit friends and family coming back as well, especially if it's regularly. So not every person listening to this is going to think, well, I have to balance all three. For some people, academics is going to be a lot more important than environmental or financial fit. For some people, it's going to be the other way around. Maybe finances or environment is going to be more important than academics. So you definitely don't have to balance. Well, you don't have to perfectly balance all three, but you should balance them. Make sure that you do not exclude any of these, because if you're going to a school that really excels at academics and that is all you feel like fits for you, you probably will not have a good time at that university or college. All right, so that's kind of the main concept. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty and talk about first how to research and then how to narrow down your choices. So there's a lot of tools that are available to you to research. So you're figuring out, okay, academics, here's what I want. Environment, this is kind of generally where I want to be. And finances, this is about how much my family can afford. To find out which colleges and universities are going to fit that, you can use any of the tools that are listed on the screen. Niche and CapEx are services that they'll basically just give you a grade or have some data available for certain colleges and universities. Niche also looks at neighborhood data and things like that too. So it's not just limited to the college. Again, environmental fit is important. So kind of figuring out the data and learning a little bit more about where you're going to be living, where you're going to be studying is very important. Big Future by the College Board. The College Board is, especially if you were an American student or a student living in America, it may be a big part of your life. They're the organization that does AP tests, SAT tests. They also do the CSS profile, which for some universities and colleges is part of the financial aid application process. So it's good to have kind of everything in one place. Big Future is the College Board's way to, it's basically their university researcher, as well as a scholarship database and researcher. So if you have your Common App or your College Board ID, basically log into this, find more information about your colleges and universities, add them to your list, find scholarships, and so it's a central repository there. So I think that's its best feature. And then US News and World Report, I said at the beginning of this presentation, rankings are not the best way to start and end a college search process. They can be valuable to because they require a lot of data in order to make those rankings. So, just because a certain university might be ranked #1 in a certain region or area or in the country, it might not be #1 for you, but go into the data and figure out, why did they say it was #1 or #2 or #3? I think that's probably the best way to use that information. So especially if you are maybe new to the college search process, you haven't done a lot of research yet, which is totally fine. Some of the colleges that are floating through your head right now might be the name brand colleges. They can be colleges that are close to you. So to give you a little bit of personal information, I am from Colorado. I applied to Colorado State University because it was very close to where I lived. And then I also applied to the University of Denver because it was also close to where I lived. And it had that name recognition as being one of the, to my mind, best universities in that state. So those were the only two. I had my kind of the reach school, and then I had the school that I thought I could get into. So I don't think that's always the best way to go about it. Really dive into the research and find colleges that you had never heard of before, because they they really think that you're a good fit. You may also find them as a good fit for you too. Colleges That Changed Lives it started out as a book and now as an organization. You can visit their website that focuses on really a student-centered search process. So they have some good recommendations and some data. And also think about, if you want to go to a college that has a strong identity. So using the example of an HBCU, historically Black college or university, if you feel like you really do want that HBCU experience, or you at least want to research it and see if it's right for you, I would start with a list of HBCUs. Just do that first. That you don't have to limit your search to HBCUs, but look at places like Howard and Florida A&M, other universities and colleges, and see, are there differences between them? If I really do want an HBCU, which one is going to be the best fit for me? And that can actually lead you in places that maybe you've never heard of some of these universities, and you're finding really good colleges that fit both, academics, environment, and finances as well. I said this a little bit earlier as well, go straight to the source. So going to the website is a great way to get the most up-to-date data, as well as looking at their social media, especially if they have updates that they want to share, or even just seeing the general personality of the people working at the university and studying at the university. Social media is a great way to do that. You don't have to limit your search to the admission social media page or the admission website. Admission pages are a great way to kind of get an first idea of what the university has to offer, but definitely go to your department pages. If you want to study biology, go to the university or college's biology page, see who the professors are, see what some of the students are studying. Even like looking at the graduate program opportunities gives you an idea of what they might specialize in, even if you don't plan to go to graduate school. And then, basically doing what you're doing right now, watching videos like this, going to information sessions, doing one-on-one counseling sessions with admission counselor, interviews, tours, basically going beyond just what the university might provide to a general audience, and making it customized, asking questions of people who work and live and study at the university or college is a great way to get more detailed and nuanced information. So finally, where do you apply? How many colleges do you apply to? It really depends. And I know that's an answer that you may have thought I would say. I do think that it is important to understand that it really does depend how many colleges you should apply to, how big that college list should be. I would recommend casting a wide net. Start your search very broad. Don't start writing things off until maybe later in the search process, thinking about, well, I know generally what my finances are going to be and my academics are and my environment, what I want. Keep an open mind, but maybe have a list of many, many colleges, a couple dozen, something like that. And then you can start narrowing down from there. We say on the slide, 6 to 10 schools is a good general range for students. I think that keeps it manageable. Also, if you want to do more opportunities like this, so if you're going to an information session, it's a little bit easier to do information sessions for 6 to 10 schools than it is for 20 or more schools. That being said, for some people, it might make sense to apply to a lot of schools. The Common Application allows you to apply to, I think, at least 20 colleges and universities right now. So for some students, it might make sense to max that out and apply to basically as many schools as you can. It might not make sense for every student, but it is not something that I would discourage if it makes sense for you. So how do you narrow it down? So remember, back when I was saying that it doesn't have to be a perfect balance for academics, environment, and finances, it really doesn't. And thinking about the criteria that are the most important to you is the best way to narrow it down, at least in the initial stages, after you have your list of a couple dozen or so. If finances are really important to you, go down the list and see which are going to offer me, maybe which have a really good financial aid system, which are the schools that offer, that meet full financial need. Things like even looking at, this isn't a perfect idea of what your financial aid package is going to look like, but looking at the endowments of certain universities as well helps you understand, basically the finances that they have. But it's not to say that a school with a lower endowment is not going to be able to offer you a good financial aid package. So thinking about the schools that fit the majority of your criteria, I'd say is you want to make sure that that's all of your schools are going to fit a majority of those criteria. But you also want to have a variety. So it shouldn't be all the same kind of school. Not that schools, every single school isn't different in some way. And you'll find a lot of that when you're researching. But you may have heard these terms before, probable, target, and reach schools. I think that it's an imperfect way to think about it, but the basic idea to break this down is, where are your academic credentials? So grades, test scores, courses that you've taken, things like that. Where does that put you in the average academic profile of the university? So a probable school, your academic profile, your credentials are in the upper band, or one of the higher basically tested credentials at that university. Target schools, you're basically in the middle. You would be considered sort of in that middle, 50 or 30%. And reach schools is your academic credentials are on the lower end, or perhaps they're far below. It's definitely, especially for colleges and universities that offer a holistic admission process, test scores, grades are not going to be the only thing that they're looking at. So if you are applying to a college where your academic credentials are below what the university or college publicizes on their website or something like that, do not think that it is an automatic deny, because in many cases it is not. However, I would caution you against applying only to schools where you fall in the lower end of that band, or even schools that are very selective. Many selective universities will say that the majority of their applications, that the people who apply are admissible. So even if you are in like the upper band, you definitely don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So have a variety of choices. And then finally, a couple other tips. when we're looking at grades and test scores and things like that, look at the middle 50% of GPA and test scores as opposed to the average, if the university or college publicizes that. The reason why is because, especially if your college is or university has a wide range of programs, they're also going to have a wide range of people applying to those programs. So averages might not accurately reflect what the sort of standard like 50 to 30% middle band is going to look like. And that's going to help you figure out if it is indeed a probable or a target school or a reach school. So look to see if they're test optional as well. For test optional schools, again, I wouldn't put as much stock into your test scores. Definitely look at their academic requirements or prerequisites. For many universities, they're not hard guidelines. If you weren't able for whatever reason to take a certain course, definitely don't think that that's going to be a deal breaker for every single college or university, but it is good to see what kinds of courses they prefer or even in some cases require. We talked about a holistic review. That can be helpful to figure out, especially if your academic credentials fall in the lower end of what's publicized on their website or materials, and as well as the selectivity, because that can help you figure out, is this going to be a reach school, even though my profile is hitting kind of that upper band. And then finally, additional considerations, different application plans. So some colleges, you might only be able to apply at one time, or maybe they have a rolling application system where you can basically apply at any time of the year. Some colleges and universities allow some students to apply earlier and hear back earlier. So one thing that might be helpful is if you select a couple of institutions that have an early decision or early action application plan, you can apply to those colleges, hear back about them, and then use that information when you were applying regular decision with all of your other colleges. So that way you basically know what the several colleges, what your decision is going to be before you submit your application to the others. That can be very helpful if you're trying to figure out financial aid or thinking, well, maybe I'll apply to a couple reach schools early and see if I even get in, or maybe, like this one school that I'm really dreaming about, if I get in, I know I'm going. So maybe it's just that. Thinking about other opportunities that are available as well. And I mentioned academic enrichment opportunities. The one thing I'll say is that, let's say that you have a dream school that you really, really, really want to get into and you get in, and that's super exciting. But let's say you get also into another school that was not necessarily on the top of your list, but it also offers you a spot on some kind of honors program or society. It offers you really good financial aid. Maybe it has other extracurricular opportunities that are exciting to you. You may actually want to take the offer at the admission offer at the school that you weren't initially planning on, because those extra things can often make the difference. Make sure that these extra things are worth going to that college for. Definitely if they offer you something like a keychain or something like that, it's probably not going to make or break your decision. But think about these really meaningful enrichment opportunities that might actually go over another institution that you were really excited about, but didn't really offer you those same opportunities. And then I guess the most important piece of advice I can give you is make sure you would be happy attending every single school on your list. When you get that letter saying, congratulations, you've been admitted, we hope you can come, I want you to jump for joy. I don't want you to be like, well, I mean, I just checked that off the list. I guess that's my safety school or, whatever. I think those terms I would not recommend using those, because every single school for you should be a school that you're really happy to go to. Schools that are going to be a great fit for you. They're going to offer you some wonderful opportunities, as well as schools that really, really want you to come. So that was the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any other questions, feel free to message us, email us, call us at admission@andrew.cmu.edu or 412-268-2082. You'll be connected with somebody in our admission office be very happy to talk through some things that we discussed today in more detail. But thank you very much and have a wonderful day.